Have you ever thought about a crisis that's kind of hidden? Something that affects almost everything we care about, healthcare, climate action, but it just flies under the radar.
It's this silent disappearance we're talking about. Millions of people literally vanishing from official records.
Exactly. And that's what this deep dive is all about. We're going to unpack this really alarming kind of quiet crisis that's unfolding globally.
Yeah, where the data we rely on, censuses, surveys, it's deteriorating.
We'll get into why people are becoming uncounted, what that actually means. The consequences are pretty serious, and importantly, what we can maybe do about it.
It's a profound challenge, really, because if you don't know who's actually there, how can you serve them? You just can't.
And for this, we're drawing heavily on a really crucial paper. It was published in Science by researchers, I believe, from the University of Southampton and Columbia University.
That's right. And they're essentially sounding the alarm on this, loudly.
So our mission today, really, is to understand how they call it a perfect storm, how it came together. You've got the after effects of the pandemic, shifting international policies, declining public trust.
It all comes together, yeah. And it's threatening the very foundations of fair governance, resource allocation, all of that worldwide.
So get ready. You're about to really understand why knowing who's counted is, maybe more vital now than it's ever been.
Okay, so this quiet crisis, the researchers, they frame it like this.
And it hit funding too, right? For these big data collection efforts.
Absolutely. Funding got diverted, priorities shifted. Then, layered on top of that, you have this decline in public trust. People just don't trust national governments like they used to.
Which makes sense. Some communities worry, maybe rightly so, that the data could be used against them. Things like immigration enforcement.
Or even, AI making decisions based on that data. Plus, there's the constant fear of data leaks, cyber attacks. It makes people hesitant to share information.
So, pandemic disruption, falling trust. But the paper also mentioned something else. A breakdown in international support. What did they find there? That seems quite significant.
It is significant. This brings us to development assistance, foreign aid. Countries like the U.S., the U.K., France, the Netherlands, they've cut back. Take the U.S., for instance. Under the Trump administration, support was cut for the Demographic and Health Surveys program, the DHS.
Oh, I know DHS. It's been huge, hasn't it?
For 4 decades, provided vital data in 90 countries. Often the only reliable data where censuses were weak or missing.
Wow.
And these aid cuts, it's not just about direct help to countries for their surveys. It also means less support for the UN agencies that provide technical help, expertise for running censuses and surveys properly.
So, okay, let's connect the dots. What does all this mean for the actual people who are, becoming statistically invisible? The paper talks about the stakes being quite high.
They are incredibly high. This data is fundamental. Think about it. Where do you build hospitals? How do you allocate money for schools?
Even emergency response, right? Like disease outbreaks or natural disasters.
Exactly. All of that depends on knowing how many people live where and who they are, age, gender, things like that. Without good data, you're basically flying blind.
It's like trying to navigate a really complex system but with a blindfold on. And governments have known this for ages. Censuses go back to Roman times for a reason.
They do. They provide those essential data points. But here's the worrying part. The percentage of the global population covered by up-to-date censuses, the ones done every 10 years, like they should be, that number has actually gone down.
Really? Declined?
Yes. And get this, out of the 204 countries that did manage a census between 2015 and 2024, countries representing a quarter of the world's population haven't even published their results yet.
A quarter? That's huge.
It is. And even where results are published, these things called post-enumeration surveys, they're like independent checks on accuracy. They suggest accuracy and coverage are getting worse.
Can you give an example?
Sure. The 2020 U.S. Census, it likely undercounted the U.S. Latino population by almost 3 million people, 2.9 million.
Wow.
And look at South Africa. Their 2022 census potentially undercounted the entire population by up to 31%.
31%. Almost a third.
Almost a third of a nation potentially missing from the official count. Think about the implications for policy based on that data. It's staggering.
It really makes you wonder.
And the UN estimates that just in the 2020 census round, 1 in 3 Africans were not counted. 1 in 3.
Those numbers are just hard to grasp.
Yeah.
One of the lead authors, Dr. Jessica Espy, she put it really well. She said, when groups are not counted, they can be left off the policy agenda.
Exactly.
That political underrepresentation and the inadequate resource allocation that follows can have pernicious effects. It becomes this vicious cycle, doesn't it?
It absolutely is. It introduces bias, both known and unknown bias, right into the decision-making process.
Yeah.
And it's ironic, isn't it?
How so?
Well, we live in this age of supposed big data. We have satellite images, social media feeds, mobile phone data, endless streams of information.
Right, data everywhere.
Yet this really fundamental demographic information, the bedrock stuff, is actually getting worse. It kind of raises a big question, doesn't it?
Yeah, like if we have so much data floating around, why is this specific, absolutely vital data seemingly in decline?
Yeah.
What does that disconnect tell us? Maybe about where our priorities are.
That's a really interesting paradox to think about. But thankfully, the researchers don't just leave us with the problem. They do point towards solutions, what can actually be done.
Right, let's talk solutions. They mention new technologies.
Yes, technology can definitely play a role. For instance, using AI to analyze satellite images. You can map building footprints very accurately now.
How does that help with a census?
Well, it helps plan the logistics. Where do you need to send enumerators? How many households are likely in an area? It can make the whole process more efficient, potentially cheaper too.
Interesting.
There's an initiative called World Pop. They're doing amazing work globally in population mapping, and they've already had success using these kinds of methods in places like the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Okay, so tech offers some hope. But it feels like this isn't just a tech problem, is it? Based on what we said about trust earlier.
Oh, absolutely not. Tech is a tool, but it's not the whole answer. The paper really emphasizes this. Governments have to work on rebuilding trust.
How do they do that?
They need to be much clearer, much more transparent about how census data is actually used. Show people how it benefits their daily lives, funding for local services, planning, representation.
So connect the data directly to tangible benefits.
Exactly. And be really open about data privacy, security, how it's protected. It all comes back to that public trust issue. If people don't trust the process, they won't participate fully, no matter how fancy the tech is.
It really drives home the point that this isn't just about bean counting, is it? Accurate population data is foundational.
It really is. Professor Andrew Tatum, the other co-author, puts it perfectly. In an era of growing challenges, from climate change to economic inequality, accurate population data is not a luxury. It is essential infrastructure.
Essential infrastructure, like roads or bridges.
Precisely. For healthy, resilient, functioning societies.
Yeah.
And this undercounting we're seeing, it creates this dangerous negative feedback loop. Well, governments get less accurate information, particularly about the communities most in need. So their policies are less effective, maybe even harmful, which further erodes trust and makes data collection even harder next time. It threatens statistical accuracy and the foundations of equitable governance.
So pulling this all together from our deep dive, this quiet crisis, it's not just abstract numbers on a page. It's about the very plumbing of our societies, you could say.
That's a good way to put it.
When people become statistically invisible,
Yeah.
it directly undermines the ability of governments to actually govern effectively.
Yeah.
Especially for the most vulnerable. It weakens the whole system.
Definitely. You know, while the challenges are pretty daunting, it's not hopeless. There are tangible paths forward.
Right, the solutions side.
Yeah. As the researchers wrap up, they say, by combining technological innovation with renewed public trust and international cooperation, we can ensure that everyone is counted and everyone counts.
Everyone counts. That's the goal.
It has to be.
It really leaves you with something to think about, though, doesn't it? What does it actually mean for our future, our collective future, when the most vulnerable people start disappearing from the data? How does that invisibility, that statistical silence, shape the decisions being made right now? Decisions that will affect not just us, but generations to come. What are the deeper consequences of not truly knowing who we are as a global community?